Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. We will bring the March 10th, 2026 meeting to order. The first agenda item would be any approval or changes to the agenda, and we'll entertain motions.
Yeah, for timing of attendance purposes, I would just like to move agenda 8.6 to agenda 8.2 instead, just to switch those.
Second.
Moved by Adams, seconded by Jacob. Question, conversation, discussion, debate. All in favor, we'll call the question. Fantastic.
Yeah.
The agenda has been so changed. Any other changes or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll proceed with our agenda. That brings us to agenda item 3.1. We have two people who are signed up to speak. The first will join us virtually, and that is Britt Campese. Then we will come back and check, and after our other speaker, our next speaker is Nancy Braun. How you doing, Nancy?
Good evening. I'm Nancy Braun. I'm a kindergarten teacher here at ICSD. And tonight, I'm just here, first of all, to say thank you to Dr. Brown for your response to the remarks I made at a previous meeting about the importance of play and physical activity and phys ed in our students' school day, because I so appreciate the your endorsement of how important that is for their physical and mental health and for their learning. I also want to say a thank you to board member Emily Workman for the research you did into the logistics and the legality of possibly moving the start date of kindergarten so that we would have sort of an older cohort that kids would maybe start kindergarten after they're 5. And for mentioning the idea of possibly they have transitional K programs in other districts that are solutions to that issue. And then I guess just keeping this conversation about how we can do right by our youngest learners, our universal entry point. I would just like clarification because we're meeting with caregivers on Friday, and this has been a question for a number of years. Can families whose students start kindergarten when they're still 4 and they turn 5 during their kindergarten year, so on the youngest end of that age spectrum, can they request, if they feel that their student developmentally is just going to be rushed if they enter first grade, can they request that their student get another year of kindergarten? Is there any policy why we can't do that? Or because I ask because I've had it happen that families have asked, and situations where I have also felt that that would serve a child's needs most. And it's never been approved or supported at the admin level. And I don't know why. I'd love clarification. And in thinking about, I do think that we offer a 5th year to graduate high school. If I'm correct, that's a metric that we follow. That we have like a 5-year graduation rate. So if we are okay with that, could we also be okay with, students can have an extra year at the start of their career and not wait till the end to offer that as an option for, meeting a student developmentally where they are. Thank you for keeping this conversation about early childhood going. I really appreciate it.
Before we go to board responses, we'll check again to see if Britt has joined us. We'll be sure to follow up with Britt as well. So we'll go to board responses next on the agenda. And Emily, do you want to respond to that? What we heard from Kate, if you recall? Or you want me to respond?
Sure.
Let me say we try hard to not give responses and try to give a week or 2 weeks another board meeting notice to make sure that we can do our research and provide with accurate information. With that being said, my recollection of that conversation, the quick answer is no. That it is not possible to do 2 years. However, that does not mean that it's not a local board decision to make. But I will follow up, or we will follow up with BS&K, our lawyers. But we asked that same conversation, that same question, and so I want to get clarity to make sure that we are speaking accurately and give you the information and or give you the regulation, if that is the case. But that is my recollection from that conversation. You may not share the same recollection.
Yeah, I don't share the same
Yeah.
recollection, but largely because I don't feel like that specific question was discussed because we were talking, my head was in a space about the impact on the students who weren't able to. I'd actually be interested to hear the district practice and or policy from nationally. I think that's a relatively common practice, but I'm curious from you
And
all.
what was the practice we're referring to now?
Of like letting somebody repeat kindergarten, if they didn't feel like they developmentally.
And again, I wish to reserve the right to do some additional research. And if I'm understanding from what I'm hearing here and the question being asked, we're simply talking about retention. And we have done retention on occasion, even though the research is very clear about retention and the negative impacts of it. And then oftentimes when we use the word retention, we also couple it with developmentally appropriate, which is also ambiguous. So I think it was referenced that administration has never been in favor of it. I do have strong views about retention, particularly how it disproportionately impacts young people from marginalized backgrounds. So if we're talking about a retention policy, let's talk about a retention policy or the practice of retention, which is one we haven't done much here, whether it's a young person at 4 or 14 or in the 5-year graduation rate. Yeah, if we're okay with it. Yes, it sometimes takes young people an additional year to finish high school. And it is reported as a 5-year graduation rate, which is not something we want. So is it another pathway or an option? Yes, but we prefer a 4-year graduation number versus a 5-year. So this one, there are many layers to this, but you mentioned national conversations and research, which is very clear about retention. And when I hear the word developmentally appropriate, I always pause and attempt to interrupt. What do we mean by that?
So I think there's two things that we have to explore. And Nancy, I want to apologize. I'm going back to my notes. That conversation was about pre-K. It was not about kindergarten. And so vastly different federally funded program, right? So that's partly why I even hesitate to respond to make sure I'm giving accurate information. And I hope folks hear that clearly as well, what we're talking about, will respond. I also think the question is about whether or not a parent or caregiver makes the choice versus a classroom teacher makes the choice. And so let's do some additional research, and you are no stranger to our board meetings. Let's keep the conversation going.
And I have a question or a clarification. If we're talking about 5-year graduation rate, it's not that a student chooses 5-year plan when they enter into 9th grade. It depends on whatever the credit load is, that it may extend to 5-year. Could be academic reason, could be personal reason, whatever it may be. But it's not like, oh, I go into 9th grade saying I have a choice, which route I'm taking. So so when we say a 5-year graduation, let's clarify that.
I also just want to add to make sure that we avoid being too ableist in this conversation, that some students actually can and do and should go to school. I think it's through their 21st birthday. Sometimes it's the 22nd. I don't know, it changes. And then I can also share that professionally, I can tell you that a 2nd year of kindergarten on a national level is not, I mean, there are students that legit need it for reasons, and it's not something that's just handed out easily. There needs to be documentation. It's not, I'm surprised to hear that it sounds that simple, because I don't know anywhere where it's something that's just like said, oh, no big deal. It's a big deal everywhere, even for students who clearly could benefit from it and are behind. And it's conversations that they have considering which grade you would be better at repeating, because in some conversations, because 1st grade in a lot of states, there's so much of a focus on literacy, they would suggest that you do a 2nd year of 1st grade if you're behind. So I think there's a lot more research to do before just throwing out random anecdotal commentary.
Just to clarify, not random or anecdotal, this is like studying policies across the country. But also I think that kindergarten is very different from any other grade. And when we're talking about retention, while that's a very important language piece that we need to be thoughtful about, kindergarten is often treated very differently. It certainly is treated differently in different states. In many states, it's not even required that students attend kindergarten at all. And there are so many decisions that a parent is going to make in terms of whether their student is going to attend kindergarten if they are pretty young, but could be able to, which I know is like the gap that we've been talking about as it relates to this issue. And I actually was thinking it's an interesting thing for us to dive into a little bit more because it does relate to exactly what we were talking. If that were something that would be permitted, and I'm not saying that this should be a tool for that purpose, but that would allow students who otherwise would have to, or families who would otherwise have to pay for childcare for another year if they were choosing to redshirt their child, which is a very common practice to choose to not put their child in the first year because they're on the younger end. If this were something that were permitted or looked at in a different, more kind of productive way of being able to say that like a young student could still participate in public education, knowing that their family may choose to repeat that, could be an interesting strategy to both help support families in saving money that year and allow them to get the benefits that they can, even if the family themselves don't feel like that is the benefit of kindergarten fully was established in that year. So just lots of, I mean, there's a million different things to think about.
So I'm hearing, I apologize. I'm hearing 3 different courses of action. One is to do some additional research or a conversation discussion just on a retention policy more generally for the district, what may drive some of these conversations. I'm hearing to make sure that we find exactly what is allowed either through ICSD and or other New York State education laws. And I will continue to make the push that at some point in time, and I get how busy all board members are, but a reestablishment of an early childhood education advisory council, which we've had at one point in time. It seems like it continues to keep coming back up as a conversation. I know there are some other ways in which this advisory council happens organically, but it may be something for the board to consider. So with all that being said, those are a couple of ways in which we'll proceed, and we'll get back to you and the community with much more clarity around the legality and then additional things that the board may want to consider. Does that work, board members?
Great.
Fantastic, fantastic. That will bring us to agenda item 3.3, which is our student reps. And good to see you all.
Good to see you too. I guess that's what we're supposed to do. Okay. Hi, everybody. Beautiful day out. I almost thought about like if we should like how a board meeting would happen if we were outside, like on the patio, like out there, what that might be like. I don't, just an idea for next time. Last meeting, I brought up how we were being faced with a breakfast and a lunch quota with the possibility of our only kitchen staff member, Dodie, being further reduced if we did not meet that quota. I'm really happy to report that after announcing this to the school, after kind of getting everybody involved, we far exceeded that for breakfast and for lunch. Part of that was also we have a new breakfast carts that rolls breakfast down right into the front lobby when kids come in. If the bus is late, breakfast is still there. You get on your way to class. It makes breakfast just a lot more accessible to the students, and with that, kids are just eating more in school, which we're really, really happy about. I also mentioned last time how this is also kind of part of our goal of more cafe autonomy. In years past, we've had students would make soup in the cafe that would be part of lunch for the school. We would literally grow the vegetables in our garden out front. They would come into our kitchen and they would fix them, and it was amazing. And even way back, the district would pay students to work in the cafe as part of trips fundraising, and kids would go to the Bahamas as part of the trip at the end of the school year. So maybe not that far, but we'd love your assistance in regaining some of this cafe autonomy. If you have any ideas how we go about this, even bringing back reusable silverware for students, just so we have more control over our food in the day, that would be amazing. to have your help on that. As well as that, PBAT season is in full swing at LACS. I know a lot of you will be rating them. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for showing up for that. If you aren't familiar, our PBATs are our alternative to the Regents exam in 4 major subject areas of English, social studies, math, and science. And it's where students research, write, and present on a topic. This week is the first round of our English PBATs, where students will analyze books, songs, stories, anything English in that way. It's presented in a thesis defense sort of way. I personally found them to be a lot of fun, and a great way for students to really show off some really in-depth, months-long research and work that they've done and analysis and everything. And I hope to see you there in a couple of days. So I'll give this to you.
Sure, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
do one
okay.
thing, but I'll take your. So as you know, we begin meeting in our spring trip groups at the beginning of our 4th cycle. Well, considering how quickly that date approaches, we've had a few things happen. We first met in trips rotations, and so that we take an afternoon aside instead of doing our projects, and you go around to 3 different trips. They kind of give you a spiel, they tell you what it's about, they give a little presentation. If they've done it in past years, they'll show you some photos. And from that, students get a little better understanding. Maybe they decide they want to go on those trips, maybe they decide they want to pursue something else. Then we filled out a form, we decided what trips we wanted to go on, we picked our top 3 choices. And then next week, we'll find out what trips that we have got into. Once cycle 4 begins, we will forego meeting and projects entirely and meet with our trips group the entire day on Thursdays. On another note, we've completed our musical. I missed the last board meeting for Tech Week, and it was truly an amazing show, and I hope that some of you were able to see it. With the musical having ended, we are starting up 1 act, and we'll put on our performance for that in the spring. Lastly, we've just started our shadowing and our elementary road show. The former of the 2 has us bringing in 5th grade and older students from the middle school, and I think some from the high school to shadow an LACS student for their entire class day, or not their entire class day. We've started to in previous years we had not done a full day. Now I guess we're doing a full day. Full day of classes following whatever. I believe we're doing it on a Monday and Friday, so they mostly only get classes. But so that's what they do that. And the latter of the 2 is our elementary road show. So we as a group, obviously not the whole school, some of our students, including me, are going to go around to the elementary schools and just put on a presentation, share what our school is about, some of the things we do, the experiences that we have, just to see. Because I found that otherwise the elementary schoolers, there's not much else to tell them what our school is about. And so otherwise, how would we get any students? So yeah.
I'll shout the road show one more time. I shadowed at LACS in 5th grade. It's a complete cultural immersion into what an LACS day is like, because it really is a lot different from anything else I had done to that point. And I've been to 6 different elementary schools. It's completely, you go to all your classes, and it's a totally amazing way to understand what makes our school tick. And we're really, really proud of that system too.
I remember shadowing at LACS whenever I first moved here. And I think it is a good way to get to see if it's a right fit for you, because for me, it personally didn't feel like it was, but I can see for some kids that would be very beneficial, because it's like when you're hearing about it, you don't really know what that means. So anyways, hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Sorry, I was at softball tryouts and I sprinted over here and then it started raining. I know I came into the discussion a little late about the early childcare stuff. I think that starting back up, time permitting wise, the early childcare committee would be beneficial to discuss some of those things, because I know for many different reasons, whether it's repeating a year of kindergarten, or just every kid develops their own social skills at different times, and it's good to be able to kind of tailor that to certain kids, or if they are starting younger and it's financially better for certain families, I think that's a good thing to look into. The choir theme concert is this Friday, which is a collection of auditioned acts and stuff. We always have a theme. This year's is British invasion. So it's just like different like British composers. I'm doing a duet with one of my friends and stuff, so it'll be fun. And the orchestra cabaret is next Wednesday in the cafeteria, which I'm also in. And it's like kind of similar. It's like some smaller acts and stuff too, but it's to show more personality for the kids and the concerts. Spring sports started yesterday. We've been very lucky to have nice weather for at least 2 days. Probably not anymore. And the cell phone survey, we like did a second installment of it just between today and yesterday. And we'll discuss the results next week when there's other reps here. Yeah.
Thank you, really appreciate it. Board responses.
Question for Julian, did you say that the breakfast cart started? This year, because I recall seeing it last year, just.
We had for a little bit last year, then it went away for some time, and it's back now. It's been back for the past 2 weeks, and it's really like I think just like breakfast is like double. Just having it out there, kids see it right there. They go get food, and this is a better way to start the day.
I'll follow up with more questions for you, Julie. Or not questions, I guess I would just say, it sounds like you're really engaged in thinking about meal options and the kind of opportunities that your school has to utilize like local agriculture and things that are growing. So wanted to raise that the PTA council is also really interested and focused on this topic right now, and have been having lots of conversations both with administrators and folks in the district, and then amongst themselves. These are representatives from every single school, and they have a shared interest in helping. Well, in two pieces that I wanted to mention. One was just like talking about kind of taking advantage of local agriculture. I know that they have a number of ideas about that, and have even identified some grants that they would like to go after to be able to use more agriculture, use more in New York State, and also like partner with farmers across New York now to even be thinking about like what is the schedule for like planting, and what does this mean about how the district could kind of think more about in the future about how they might be able to utilize different ingredients at different times. So I would be happy to connect you with them if you'd be interested in just learning about what they're doing and see if you want to contribute in any way. And the other thing is, one of the things they're hoping to complete this year is to work with the district about getting a survey out to really be able to hear directly from students about their like satisfaction with meal selections and opportunities to engage in the process and all of those things. I would say that we had people from the nutrition department come. I was and speak with us kind of on a related topic at our policy committee. I want to at least be able to voice that the amount of what did we hear, like 22,000 meal, what was the number? They are making an enormous amount of meals.
Oh yeah.
Every week they are
It's over 10,000, right?
Over, it was something
4,500 a day.
4,500 a day. So just voicing that I've been very impressed with like hearing about the things that they are already doing and changes in menus that have happened in the last like year or two. So just want to say both very excited about what the PTA council is doing. I would definitely encourage you to get involved, and acknowledging that that department is like working so incredibly hard to try to do exactly what they're already doing. And so hope that these kind of conversations can be very much like in partnership instead of in
So clarifying question.
Yeah.
So when you say partnership between PTA council and the student rep, or food services?
No, food services and PTA council, so that's why I'm
Okay,
saying.
good.
And they already are, I know that like Mary has taken meetings and they, like, it sounds like it's been a very like productive partnership already. I'm just voicing that there is an opportunity to engage in that if you would.
Yeah. I got one thing. On LSCS administration, Keith, Lisa, they've all been very engaged in this conversation as well, especially coming into this year. There's been an effort to have an LSCS greenhouse that's been happening for about the past year, and it's looking like they'll build it right at the beginning, either right at the end of this year or over the summer. And we like local food is such a big thing at LSCS. We'd love to work with on how we can get that into our kitchen, how we can get that into our meals, and how we can actually eat what we grow again.
I think I'll just add, as we have this conversation, and I think folks are supportive, the one thing that we did learn when talking about whether or not we just were working on a policy around school lunch and learning a little bit. I think we oftentimes don't always see the direct connection between changes in federal policy and how it is enacted on a local level, and more importantly, what are the requirements. And so the overturning of the food pyramid, the portion control that's mandated, the ways in which certain amounts of greens and vegetables and proteins are dictated to us by law and or policy and or mandate. And so I think I just want to make sure as we walk into this that we're still cognizant. Some things the district can have control over and be creative and innovative, do some things, and some things we're responding to things that we may not like. And so that was the one thing that I think I took away from that conversation is the amount of federal regulation, especially when we were having conversations with the high school reps about portion size, and what is and what is not available because what is and what is not mandated. So a larger conversation for us to have. Folks are doing some amazing work. My math is correct, and it's probably not, but if we're doing more than 20,000 meals a week, looking at my former colleague Brad Ranger to make sure my math is somewhat good, that's a significant shift as well, right? So, and I think we should all change our cell phone ringtones. All right. Any other comments?
Right there.
Fantastic. We'll keep it moving. We'll move on to the consent agenda. And we'll entertain motions.
I move to approve all consent agenda items listed in the consent agenda, personnel report, students, and minutes of previous meeting is presented.
Questions, conversation, discussion. It is a small consent agenda compared to what we normally explore with just personnel, minutes, and approval of students. Any other dialogue, questions, conversation? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That brings us to our next agenda item, and that is the superintendent update. Dr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bradwell, for the opportunity. Good to see everybody. Two quick items. The first, we restarted something in this building that I hope folks can engage with. If you walk around the hallway, you'll see artwork. And the artwork that's on display now is from our fifth graders at Beverly J. Martin. And they're super excited about it. If you get a chance to see it, and if you get a chance to send a note, they would appreciate it. But it's outstanding. And look for us to, with the help of our great team now, to refresh it periodically as part of our ongoing process here. But thank you for checking it out, and if you can, send a note. The other item, at our last meeting, we had an opportunity to approve something on the agenda, and we talked about someone who was not in the room at that time. I wish to take this opportunity maybe to talk about the person while they're in the room. At our last meeting, we approved the appointment of Brad Grange as our TST BOCES rep. And because Brad is here, I think it's important for us to recognize that he's here and also to celebrate a community treasure from my perspective, a person who's served on this board for a long time and who is serving on the TST board for a significant amount of time. And if you talk to Brad, he's serving on multiple boards in our community. So his school district work is just a part of his portfolio. And he's familiar with that term portfolio too. But he does a lot. And every time I see him, I say thank you. He's done a lot for young people in this community and beyond, including my own. So thank you. And the only thing I can think of that's more impressive than Brad Grange is his wife, Mary. So anyway, I'll stop there and thank you publicly for being here and for your service to our young people. Happy to be here. Yeah.
And I'll add a thank you to Mary as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. We'll continue on with our agenda, which brings us to agenda item 8.1, the TST BOCES budget, and we have guests joining us. So good to see folks return again.
Good evening. We're so excited to be here. For those watching at home, I think everybody here knows me, but I'm Lily Talcott. I get to serve as the district superintendent for Tompkins, Seneca, Tioga, BOCES. And with me is the amazing and talented.
Dave Parsons, Assistant Superintendent, TSD BOCES.
And we are on our annual, we call it a wood show traditionally. We actually, yes, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, I also have gold nails, right? Like it's a real thing that we need to match the district that we're in. So Dave and I actually really love doing these budget presentations. We know we're talking about dollars here, and we're also talking about programs that we're providing for children, we're providing for adults. And we love to engage in conversations. So we're going to go through some information, but pause us at any point, ask us questions, engage with us. We want to talk about the cool things that we get to do for our community at TSD BOCES. Great. So I'm going to jump in with an overarching framing. What on earth do these dollars actually go to? And at the state level, you've probably seen a lot of these images before. At the state level, our commissioner is really working to transform education in New York State. With the work of the Blue Ribbon Commission, which started pre-COVID, and then adoption through the New York State Board of Regents, there are these 4 transformations as part of New York Inspires. Adopt a New York State Portrait of a Graduate, you can see that right here. I'm sure you're very familiar with what this is. Redefining credits and learning experiences. Sunsetting diploma assessment requirements. The regions are still going to exist. And yet, they will not be required for graduation, no longer that stamp. And moving to 1 New York State high school. So that's the work that's happening throughout our state, and BOCES is integral in that. So what does that look like locally? Well, you welcomed Brad and Dan and Karen a couple of months ago, and we got to talk a little bit about regionalization and some of our blueprint work. So we have a strategic plan that was developed regionally, and it impacts not only our TST campuses, but it also impacts the 9 component districts in our region. And it's focused in on these 4 areas. So regionalization is really about centering students, student needs, and programming, and creating efficiencies of scale. So we're sharing as much as possible in order to meet kids' needs and also be financially responsible. Inclusive special education. We know that the continuum is not totally working, right, Erin? And so we're committed as a region to looking at where those gaps are for young people and then addressing those gaps. New York Inspires, you saw that previous slide. There are some things operationally that we have to shift, everything from grading to transcripts, et cetera. And equity and leadership. And maybe actually that should be first, right? Because we have to start with equity, and our leadership cannot be separated from that as a concept, and trying to make that a reality. So you've probably seen this slide before, the numbers changed, right? Very familiar. You can pause me at any point, but I'm just going to talk about these and this one, okay? All right, so your RWADA, so the Ithaca RWADA, that's just the number of kids, right? That New York State determines that number. It's not always necessarily students who are enrolled in your Ithaca City School District. It's actually those who live within the catchment. The percentage in our entire region, you have 43% of the young people in our whole region among those 9 districts. And for every dollar that you spend that is permitted to be BOCES aidable, not every dollar is, right? There's lots of rules and laws on this one. For every dollar that's BOCES aidable, you get 46.6 cents back on that dollar. That's your aid ratio, right? That's that incentivized system for sharing. It's that economy of scale in order to serve children. That bottom number, the percentage of BOCES services. So traditionally, maybe sometimes if you're a smaller district, you actually might see these sort of inverted. So this is the share of students and the share then of services that you would see. If you're a smaller district, traditionally, this number is much larger than this one, right? You don't have as many resources. In Ithaca, you have a lot of resources. You have a lot more students. You have a lot more tax dollars, both locally and statewide and federally, that come in. And so you leverage some of that money a little differently, right? Companies about 36% of the total overall services. So any questions on any of these? Alrighty. Next slide again looks really familiar. And you're going to see that there are some increases and there are some decreases. All of these numerical changes are based on a couple of factors. One, contractual obligations. So we have collectively bargained agreements and we need to pay our educators, our staff members more based on that. But it's also program expansion. And then the last thing is program requests, so service requests. Those go down, those go up. So career and technical education, or CTE, that's increased. That has to do with contractual obligations. And we opened manufacturing and machining over in Candor as a new program. And things cost more money. Just they cost more money. This week at CTE, it is seafood boil week. And food is more expensive. So we see increases in materials for me. Not emotional about seafood boil week.
Like, you should be.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was thinking about, I'm a little verklempt, talk amongst yourselves. Exceptional education, that again is increased. Thank you, Dave. He always carries cough drops.
Someone else from last year.
We make a good team. Yes. Exceptional education, again, contractual implications, but then also program expansion. So we opened a classroom in Lansing. Everything else is based on service requests. Districts say, we want more of this, or no, thank you. And then all of these can change throughout the year. Any questions on these? Thanks again, Dave.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Manufacturing and machinery.
Yep.
Machinery or
Machining.
that you opened at Candor. Is it under CTE adult or is it for students?
Great question. So our program budget for CTE, this is all of these are for students in the K-12 system. We don't have an adult ed program yet for machining and manufacturing. Our adult ed program is pretty robust, I will say. We're really close to opening an LPN program at the mall, actually, which is really exciting. But no, this one is just for high school students, 11th and 12th graders.
So if we have high school students here that choose to go into that program, how are they transported to Candor?
Yeah, so that's a district responsibility, although we're pretty close on exploring an intermunicipal agreement among actually all 10 of us. So that there's a little more flexibility in terms of who can transport who. So if there's already, say, someone from Lansing who's going through, potentially, again, this is just an example, it's not happening, potentially could stop on their way at Ithaca High School and say, take the student, the Lansing student and the Ithaca High School student to Candor. Any other questions? Overall, the total BOCES budget, I know this is unheard of when you're in a component district, is 0.13% increase. Again, service requests right now are such that that's what the increase is. And again, it can change throughout the year. Any other questions here? Great, I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
So actually that 0.13 is based on our initial service request that we get back in November. And I can guarantee you that it's changed because districts, some of them say, well, we thought we wanted that, now we want that. We thought we wanted that, now we want that. So those numbers are certainly not the same today, but we bring the same roadshow to everybody. Also, salary and fringe, because we're in the people business, is one of our biggest expenses, as it is with you folks. So we spend a little time on this one. So our salaries for next year, and this is not raises, this is what the budgets are going up. So there again, when you're increasing programs and bringing on or other people, you have to accommodate that. So what you're seeing is what our budgets are doing, not necessarily what people are getting paid. So we're looking at about a 4.79%. The 1.67, what that is the salary increase represents about 1.67% of our whole budget. So it gives you kind of a little bit of a perspective of what that means in our overall budget. Health insurance, I'm budgeting 7.9, a little over that for insurance. That includes any of the retirees that are entitled to retirement health insurance. I have to budget for those also. That represents about a 1% change. Retirement, this coming year, TRS is actually down. For next year, they're projecting it to be down from what it has been. ERS is not, that's going up. But our bigger of the two is TRS, so we're able to cut our budgets back a little bit based on that. The other stuff, it looks like it's a big increase, but it's a small piece. So the dental insurance and so on and so forth represents about a 4.64% increase in those particular budgets. But because it's so small, it's got a very small impact to the rest of the budget, 0.15. Any questions? Our capital budget is actually made up of multiple pieces. One of them is when we rent space by statute, all of that rental has to be in this budget. So when we're renting space in Candor, we're renting space next door for our young program in CTE, P-Tech over at TC3. There's various rentals we have. By statute, all of those rentals have to be in there, including the $150,000 for the adult ed. But you folks won't pay for that. What we do is we have to budget it here. When the bill comes, the adult ed actually cuts a check back to this budget. We cut the check out, but it has to be accounted for in this one. The other piece that's in this one is a small capital amount, 350. We've been at 300. I stepped it up to 350. What we're trying to do is make sure that we've got some money to keep things going, rather than coming out with big projects. And you know, when you do a roof, that's going to be a different story. But we've got some windows and we've got some electrical work that we're going to do. So we do those in smaller pieces and try to do those in the smaller chunks versus the big chunks that either you folks have to pay all in one shot or have to borrow or whatever. We're trying to avoid that for you folks by doing smaller pieces continually. So that's what makes up our rental budgets or capital budget. Reserves, we actually cannot have an unappropriated fund balance. So at the end of the year, whatever we have left over has to be returned to each district in the same fashion that we collected it. So however that charge was done, whether it was based on our WADA or percent use or whatever the different methodologies, each COSER has its own methodology. However that methodology was to collect it, we send it back in using the same methodology. So we actually cannot have an unappropriated fund balance when we get done at the end of the year. You send it all back. We do have some reserve accounts. You'll see that the capital reserve that we collected last year was 300, and we'll collect another 300 this year, and we'll collect 350 next year. So what we do with those is we try to collect it. We get a number from the state, so it allows us to actually hang on that because we've got a project in motion. So it allows us to collect that from you folks, and then when we've got enough, we're going to go do it. So actually this coming summer, we've got some windows to do, we've got some electrical to do, and the partition doors in our gym that have been there, I think, since day one. They've certainly served their purpose. That's going to get changed. So that's how our capital reserve works. These numbers are audited numbers from back in June, what it was in our budget, or in our audit, from back then. Our unemployment, we have 153 in it, as you folks are the same way. If somebody claims unemployment, the unemployment folks in Albany pays the person, they send us the bill, we send it back to Albany. So we do keep those in reserve because you just never know when that might happen, and try to not hit the budget in any particular year. The insurance and flex is actually not a reserve, but the auditors make us put it somewheres, and this is where it ends up going. So that one is made up of, we collect the employee share of health and dental for July, August, and September. We've collected that by the end of June. So that sets there so that when we're paying our bill in July, August, and September, we already have the money that the employee owes. We've already got it set aside. Another one that's in there is are some of our retirees at the end of June will pay their whole next year's share of their insurance. Well, that has to set there also. And the last two pieces are the flexible spending and the flexible child dependent care. So we collect that all by the end of June, and ours resets starting in September. So once we've collected all of that, it has to set someplace, and that's where that goes. Our CTE reserve, actually the way that one works is when we buy a piece of equipment in CTE, rather than to buy that all out of 1 year's budget, we will buy it using the reserve that we have in the CTE, and then over a 10-year period, we technically depreciate it 10 years. So if you're using 10%, so it's a $100,000 piece of equipment, we charge the budget $10,000 a year and put it in the reserve, so that we're trying to keep that expense as flat as possible. So instead of $100,000 1 year and then nothing, it's 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. So that's the way that is funded when it comes time to buy a piece of equipment or whatever, because CTE equipment tends to be a little on the expensive side. We can do that instead of hitting the budget all in 1 year. The ERS and TRS reserves, those are rainy day funds. So if things get tight, we need to start holding our rates back. We can do that by using some of our reserves to offset that instead of sending the bill to the districts. So we've built those when times were good, specifically for if times are not good. So those are things that we've built over the years. It's taken quite a few years. Actually, there was no TRS reserve when I came there because we couldn't have one. But we built that on purpose for the rainy day, someday funds. The administrative budget is the one that you folks get to vote on, just like all of your counterparts in the other 8 districts. You vote on this one, just like your taxpayers vote on your whole school budget. So once it's voted on, we can't spend a penny more than what you guys have authorized us to spend. So we spend a little bit of time doing this one just so that if there's any questions, you know what it is before you vote on it. You'll see that our salaries are up a little bit. It's an interesting phenomenon. Everybody seems to want a little bit more money every year, and I don't understand why they want to raise, but we have to budget for that. So we do have increases in there for that sort of things. We try to keep the other ones as stable or as flat as possible. You'll see that our equipment has really not changed a whole lot. Supplies have changed some. Contractual things that are in there is like the lawyer, the accountant, those types of things. And obviously those are negotiated and have to be paid for. Our cross contracts, as you folks can do, you can purchase from another BOCES. We also can. So like the Erie Policy Manual, I think you folks participate in it. Well, so do we. So rather than us doing it and trying to put that together, we just cross contract with Erie One BOCES and buy that. So that's an example of what's in our cross contracts. We have some things in there for like our board agenda and that type of things that we do through OCM BOCES. So that's what that cross contract is. The transfer budgets, what that is each COSER at TST or any of the BOCES actually has to operate as a standalone company. So obviously, the administration doesn't have heat and lights and buildings and everything else, but O&M does. So we have to purchase that from O&M. We don't have computers. We purchase that from our technology department. We purchase from our print shop. So those are some examples of what the administrative budget is actually purchasing something from one of the coasters that provides services for us. The next one is the borrowing costs. I think was what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when the interest rates woke up and we had to do a major increase in this budget to accommodate that. We actually borrow our budget. There's two BOCES that still do it. We're one and GST is the other one. So we borrow our budget. We don't send a bill to the districts until May. So the money you guys collect in September, you can then invest and make money on it. We borrow in October, whatever we are not using at that time, we also invest it. And that creates interest income. And then that's aidable also back to you folks when you pay it. Like I said, there's only two BOCES that still do that, and SED really didn't want us to do it, told us to stop doing it years ago, and they did some research and said, where does it say we can't do that? And SED said, as long as you keep doing it, you can do it. If you ever stop, you can't do it again. And all my counterparts are jealous that we do that because they can't. They can't. Nobody else can start it. We can continue it as long as we keep doing it. So
annually, that means that throughout our region, districts can invest money and get it from the banks, right? As opposed to getting it from taxpayers.
Yeah.
So it's about, every time that we look at it, it's anywhere between $7 million and $10 million that are coming into our region without taxing the taxpayers.
The last one that's on here is our retiree benefits. That's always a big number in this. Anyone that retires from TST BOCES, whether they're in administration or CTE or any department, if they're entitled to retirement health insurance because they've met the obligations that are in their contracts, that cost by statute has to be in the administrative budget. So we do have to budget for that every year to pay that bill. But like there again, my counterparts are actually jealous. Some of them are running in the 60 to 70% of the budget is that. We've done some negotiations over the years to try to curb that curve. And we've got other ones that will take another 10 to 20 years before that actually comes to fruition. But we've done things to try to slow that curve. So given all of that, we're looking at about a 2.67% increase in the cost. I do budget for interest, and I will never deny the fact I budget on the conservative side. We're going to get a lot more than that, but if I put more than that and we don't make it, that's a big problem. So what we do is we budget what we think, what I can almost guarantee 99 to 100%. I will budget that. If we get more than that, it's coming back to you folks in refunds. So I will always budget on the conservative side and hope for the best. The miscellaneous line, we had actually one district actually asked us what was in that, and I had to go back and look because it's the number I've had in there forever. Little things in there are when we do the certification for coaches, SED actually cuts TST BOCES a check. We do the sales tax calculations and online filing for sales tax. They actually pay us. Coffee money. So anybody that's paying in for the coffee that we have at BOCES, that goes in there. So that's really what that is. It was the first time I've been asked in 18 years, what was that for? And I had to go look.
So Dave, $2,995 is in coffee, and then the rest is.
So much
Correct.
coffee. Dr. Eversley Randall.
Yeah.
So thing.
Any questions with that one? Because that's the one that you folks get to vote on. So we want to make sure everybody understands what that one is and where it is.
I have a question with how you guys are borrowing the money. Like what's the rate that you're borrowing it at? And then
This
what's the
year,
rate
I
that
want to
it's
say it
costing
was
you?
at 3.6.
Yes.
And we were putting it in night class this fall at almost 5. Yeah, so actually Oppenheim, probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I will because it's public. Oppenheimer has actually bid on our, because it goes out to bid. Who can give us the money at the cheapest rate? Oppenheimer, quite a few years said, we like this, it fits in our portfolio, and they're aggressive on their rates. I think the lowest I saw during the really low time in interest was 0.077%. I mean, pretty much here, just take my money.
Yeah.
So because we borrow it and we do it every year and they know that we borrow it in November and you get your money back June 30th and there's no in between. They know it's going out, they know it's coming back, they can put it in their portfolio and it works. They're actually very aggressive. They want this one.
Yeah.
So what it does is it costs, $20-some thousand to do all the paperwork and all the legal fees to borrow. So originally this was started because each district would borrow. Well, the cost of borrowing is the same whether you borrow $34 million or you borrow $2, the legal cost is the same. So rather than to have each district have to do that and pay that $20,000, we borrow it once, get a better rate, and then pass that on to our district. So financially, it seems funky that it would work, but it actually does. It's generating somewhere in the, like Willie said, somewhere between the $7 and $10 million of income and interest, and it's aidable.
Wait, 7 million income and interest, or it's that 7 million is what we're making the 1.4 interest on.
That's what all the districts combine.
Correct.
The nine districts.
So you
combined.
folks don't pay us. No, neither do the other districts pay us. So then
So you've got cash.
your tax money that you get in September or October, November, you're sitting. So the money you collect from the taxpayers, now you've got a chunk of money that you can say, here, I'm gonna invest that and generate interest on it.
That makes more sense.
And then we do the same. When we borrow, we pay our bills, but then we've borrowed because we have to pay it off. We have to use it in 6 months.
Mhm.
Well, we don't need it all right now. So what we don't need, we cash flow it out, take that, invest it, and that generates income also to BOCES, which we give back to you guys. So depending on what the year's like and the interest rates between, my calculations is somewhere between 7 and 10 million is what it brings into this region that nobody has to send a tax bill for.
It's amazing.
It is.
The outright arbitrage you're allowed to do because it's less than a 1 year borrowing.
Yep.
Yeah.
The 86 tax law did away with it on long-term
Yep.
borrowing, but you can do it on short-term.
We do have to watch though, because arbitrage is a real thing,
Yeah.
and so we do have to watch.
Yeah, we have to spend 90% of our cash flow within 6 months. So our treasurer is watching that like a hawk. And as soon as we've reached that level, then we send the bills to the district. So we're adamant that we're not going to spend money to make money. And like Brad says, if you have to, you have to. But our treasurer is a hawk on that one. And we're close. It's gonna be another couple days. Now we got these bills going. Okay, now we've reached we've spent the 90%. Okay, now let's send the bills out for our cash flow purposes.
So for you guys specifically, you make like 1.4%, that's the spread, 1.4% on like 6.5 million. Over 6 months, right? So it's 30 million.
It's
Yeah,
30 million.
we borrow.
Remember,
34.
it's all the districts. There's 9 districts. that
We
pay
borrowed
this.
34 million.
It's not just yours 6 million, it's all the other districts as
I
well.
understand.
So
Yes.
So it's quite a bit.
Yeah, I was thinking for like, for this specific example, I'm saying like rough numbers, so.
You can.
So it'd be like 1.4% off that. Which is like 90,000 minus like, and the 20,000 gets spread out through all the districts, so. Okay, so you're basically.
And it's aidable.
Yeah.
At that, what your aid ratio, almost 50, 43, whatever it was, percent aid ratio also. Yeah, that's why the state didn't like
the
it.
lowest aid ratio.
Yeah.
Of the 9.
Of the 9.
Yeah.
The others actually get higher aid, ours is the lowest.
Yeah,
And that's why the state didn't like us doing this, because now they're going to pay state aid on that borrowing, and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
But there was nothing in the statute that said we couldn't. And the lawyer that was on our board at the time did the research, sent it to the state, said, show me where it says we can't do this. We can't borrow long-term, but we can borrow short-term.
And to be clear, the New York State Education Department was not asking us to stop it. It's
It was the
definitely the
Department of
Department of Budget.
Right. So they grandfathered us. Any other questions? So actually, what'll happen is sometime between the 16th and 30th of April every year, you folks have to vote on two things. One is the budget we just looked at, and then also a representative for Ithaca, South Seneca, and Trumansburg, and that vote will actually happen on April 29th. Any questions?
That's not that one. Please go. But for folks who don't know, Dave is a legend in our state, so whenever I'm in the room, I'm trying to learn. So these are learning questions, and there's two. The first, you showed where you hope to go to fund capital projects in two different ways. You have a capital reserve, then an operational capital line item.
So what we do is we're actually putting that in the capital budget every year.
Got it.
And because we've got a state ID or a state number for a project, if we didn't have a state number, a project number, we collect it from you, we gotta send it back because we have nothing to hold.
Are there limits on your reserve number or your operational number?
So we actually don't have a capital reserve.
Okay, that 300,000 that was in your reserve, what was that?
That's actually earmarked for a particular project.
Got it.
But the auditors make us put it.
So you take it out of the operational?
Yep.
And that has a limit on it or no?
No.
So as I'm thinking about, because we haven't gone to the voters to approve a capital project, even though we know there are significant needs.
At
both, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
at both.
yeah.
And I'm thinking about how we would fund that, one could be a vote, or it could be through that line item, which has no limit.
Right.
And we're talking about ways to generate, like, anyway, maybe I'll save that judgmental part later. But you have, unlike us, you have an unlimited line item for a capital project.
Well,
We have to have a project number.
I get that.
And you folks get to say yay or nay.
I get that. I think somebody knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, but there's we don't have an unlimited line item for capital projects. And you do. And it can be funded in any way you wish.
There's two ways to fund it. One is we send you guys the bill, or we go to DASNY and finance it. That's the only two ways that BOCES can do a capital project. So if we do roofs and it's more than what I can collect in 1 year.
Which it will be.
I
someday.
either have to increase that to the amount that we need, because when we get the money from you, we have to pay the.
But nothing to say you couldn't take the refund and or the interest money we're receiving and put it into that line item.
Correct.
That's all I was saying.
Yep.
And we talked about millage.
And we wouldn't do that unless we said,
I know
you guys okay with that?
Yeah, I get that.
Because it's your money.
There's another conversation happening behind the conversation.
Yeah, but then the other one, your ERS and TRS numbers, around $2.5 million. Ours is like 3.3. So you've been 30 years you've been doing this. What have been the swings in what we've been asked to fund TRS and ERS? Have they been that different?
I think the highest I've seen for ERS is 21%. The rate of interest or the rate of ERS cost has been as high as 21. And I think the lowest I've seen it is maybe 7 or 8%.
That's a big range.
Yeah. And ERS is on a yearly change. So whatever the stock market is, if they're doing great, our rates go down. If they're not doing great, our rates go up. It's an inverse of the stock market. ERS is on a yearly rate. TRS is on a 5-year rate.
Yeah.
So that's why TRS tends to be a little more stable. I think the highest I've seen TRS is maybe 16, 17.
Yours is either very healthy or ours is not healthy at all, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's my statement behind my question. When looking at ours versus yours.
So what I've done when I've done those is to say, if things go south and go sour for everybody, how long could we survive and keep our rates as flat as possible? Because you folks are still going to want to send kids, you're still going to want to buy services, so on and so forth. So what can we do in order to flatten those rates to get through? How long can we do that? And my thoughts were always with these is, can we get through 5 years? Well, can we make that last 5 years? Because typically the cycles are somewhere between 7 and 9 years, the highs and lows in the economy. So if we can get through 5, I think we can squeak that out to 7. without seeing big, huge changes. Cause my thoughts are, things take off and they get expensive. We're going to hold our rates back to you and use what we have. So that because you're gonna have your own issues dealing with the high costs of things. Well, you don't need our high cost too. So we're gonna do whatever we can do to use our reserves and everything to keep our rates as flat as possible. So that you're not seeing your costs and ours at the same time.
Without any mechanism for an unappropriated
Right.
fund balance whatsoever.
Yeah, so I have to do, I'm always trying to do the opposite.
Okay.
To help you guys.
Thank you.
Conscious
It's a
move.
good question.
That and arbitrage in my learning what's back.
Yeah. That's when you have to pay income taxes because you made too much. You borrowed money to make money, now you're gonna pay income tax on it,
Thank you all.
which I'm adverse to.
I need to name what happens when you lose money. Questions from other board members? Fantastic. I think the only thing we'll have to figure out is the date of the vote. Our meeting schedule looks the 28th. There's a meeting scheduled for the 28th. I'm not seeing on my calendar. Fantastic. Thank you both very much.
Yes,
Really
thank you
appreciate it.
very much. We appreciate you letting us have some time with you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Have a great night, everybody.
You-
Thanks, have a good evening.
We'll have to put that 28th meeting on our calendars and we have that already. Fantastic. That was the BOCES presentation. We have changed our agenda. That brings us to formally agenda item 8.6, the 2026-2027 academic calendar, which is now 8.2. And we will entertain, this is a voting item for this evening.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 academic calendars presented.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Discussion, debate, conversation.
Would love to know what, if any, changes there were made since the last presentation.
Let's go. Let's go. Come on up.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So BOCES just left. I will say, I just want to echo that our timing of this, they entered with the whole region a collaboration to set their calendar. And so one of our biggest goals was to stay in sync with the BOCES calendar so our students don't miss programming. And we can leverage shared professional development days like the one we have coming up on Monday. That's important, to mention that. The one change you're going to see is that we have made September 4th and June 28th, staff choose one. It's optional. So when this version came out, we received feedback that some teachers did not like the idea of having the same last day of teaching and the same last day of students being the same day. So we added the 28th as an option, but then we also received input from educators that they liked having the days at the front and preparing for students. And the 4th being there and designated as a teacher work day. So you're going to see the one change before you right now is that now they have a choice. To meet the 186 work days, they can either come September 4th or they may choose to come June 28th. We trust them to make that decision in their professional judgment.
So Mary, that raises two questions for me, and I realize each of our collective bargaining units have different numbers of days, of contractual number of days. Here I'm assuming we're referring to members of the ITA to be able to choose that.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
And then if I heard correctly, maybe you just answered my other question, is that we'll have faith that members of the ITA will choose one of those days on an honor system. They'll log into the platform. How are we going to know who chooses what day?
So I need to work with building leadership on that because they're going to be doing the lifting on that as far as the tracking of it.
I appreciate that flexibility, right? Because the two main pieces of feedback we got, some really liked having it early, some really liked
Yeah.
trying to end on the same time and so.
It's also a unique calendar year because of how late Labor Day falls.
Yes.
So I think this is a once in a, it's a rare occurrence that we're starting per New York State ed law school after Labor Day. And it's falling.
And then lastly, with that option, which I greatly appreciate the creativity and now you're working folks, but I want to repeat something that Dr. Brown has said over and over again is I've never seen a perfect calendar. With that being said, the feedback that we received was probably the least amount of feedback around the calendar itself and more germane to two particular days. And in my time on the board, I've seen much more feedback than that, 70 pages of feedback about this spring break, about this day, that day. So whatever was done this time, it seems close to a really good, almost near perfect calendar. Take a look at it, Doc, print it up, frame it, do whatever you gotta do. Well, let's get to a vote first before we get to that route.
I have a quick
Others,
question.
yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna go back to the caregiver conference day. Cause it's a newer element with secondary. And this is a conversation I had with a couple folks, but basically recognizing it's a half day and understanding that we have to have that for our last conversation. But what someone mentioned to me is that, when it's a half day for students, in secondary, the classes are so short that it's almost like, what's the point? And then also knowing that the feedback I've heard is that it's so hard for parents to even, or caregivers to even get a conference. And so I don't know if it's necessarily something we can even workshop this year, but I wonder if there's a way to think creatively about that with building leaders where we look at, one of those half days is half a day where there's full classes and another half day is a half a day where another set of our full classes, like to work around whatever issues teachers are noticing with.
Right.
I think I made my point, but as I said in an earlier meeting, my ADHD medicines wore off and I'm just having a very hard time spitting out my thoughts. But if we're worried about filling those academic requirements, let's make sure they're meaningful and how can we do that?
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is an idea to go back to the leadership, both principal leadership and ITA leadership for middle school and explore maybe doing periods 1 through 4 on the first day and having it for a full period, and then periods 5 through 7 on the second day. And then I also think we can do better in the communication with families on how to access their students' team. Because there is team time at the middle school level. So if families wanted to meet with all of their child's teachers, they could do that, but we can do that, communicating how to request that. Because it is true to fit to manage all the requests for conferences at the middle school, that not everyone is gaining access.
And it was never designed to do that. It was really designed to for caregivers to put on their calendar, here is a designated time, but you can go outside of that time. And I think the communication and newsletters and all from middle schools would definitely be helpful.
He did I received some good feedback that I would like to share out as well, is having some other workshops during that time. So you might not get a conference, but that there would be a workshop, say, on navigating Canvas that caregivers could attend a conference or at least come to that to grow their understanding of some of the systems of the school that we're looking at for the upcoming school year.
That's a great idea. I think that's too late. November, a workshop for that, and
well, there'd be at the beginning of the year too, but just navigating once grades are being inputted or how assignments are coming through. But I hear you. Yeah, the timing.
Yeah, it's something about sort of access and support at any point in time of the year that'd be helpful, right?
Yeah.
That you need it at different times. So I hear you, it's late in the year, but families are coming in at different times when they need to know things, right? So I also think it's
Was that possible to do asynchronous? Like kind of like a professional development online, like this is how you navigate Canvas and like a.
There are some tools that are currently available on our website that we can highlight with the communications team and upcoming insider.
No learning management system is good. Say that.
I just wanted to highlight one speaking to the Canvas P6, wanted to shout out Zach and the work he's doing with the technology committee. I know a conversation that came up was around. I know as the parent of a high schooler and former middle schooler, navigating the multiple ways that different folks set up Canvas is overwhelming, even as an educator who teaches through Canvas, it's overwhelming. And so trying to standardize that process across classrooms, I think would be a huge win for every stakeholder in the district. I also just an unrelated question, but about the calendar. A couple of caregivers reached out to me wanting to essentially to complain about the February break. And I just was curious for the rationale behind the February break for those who spend most of their time in New York State. It's not a common practice around the country. It seems like a very New York thing. Is it because of bargaining agreements or something else?
I would just say it actually is a very common thing across New York State. And the reason why, the Northeast. And the reason why I know that as a spouse who works in college admission, that week is they are overwhelmed with visits to campus that entire week. So Jersey, oftentimes Massachusetts are very school district, parts of Ohio. So it's not just New York State. I think it's a part of the Northeast as well. But I didn't want to interrupt the answer.
It's rooted in the energy crisis of the 70s. That's the origins of it, and whatever.
What is our current rationale then? Because that
We're about to
energy crisis of the 20s. That's the rush. I genuinely it's not a hill I want to die on. I just genuinely want to know for the people who picked up.
I want to answer this question 10 years ago, but I will now. It's cultural. Because as a person coming from the South, and this was so foreign to me. I tried the first couple of years to ask questions and change it. And culture in our community and our surrounding area is to have that break. And there are things that happen in our community during that time. People plan vacations or anticipate planning. So more than anything else is cultural, that's expected. But there is no technical rationale for that day.
And also the week of us teachers, right? My point being that there's a number of places that are doing that, and that's why we even created this event. To try to get
1 year we did go to Thursday, Friday, yeah, we did it. And that may have been one of the years you were referring to the calendar blowing up. I mean, the comments blowing up. People were not happy. And I received a lot of the feedback about, don't ever, you Southern person, don't ever do that again. Anyway, I observe the puzzle of the board. If you wish to entertain that again, I'd be open, but I can tell you.
I just want to say thank you to you, Mary. I know that part of the reason that we haven't been hearing a lot from the community is because you have been hearing a lot from the community and from teachers specifically, and been working really closely and collaboratively with them. And I know that having that final day was something that you got a lot of feedback on, and I heard as well. So I think it's really wonderful that you took the time to try to find some solutions. I just thank you for all of your work on it.
Additional questions, comments beyond the research project of looking at the President's Day February break? Hearing none, right? It's been moved and seconded. We'll call the question. All in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I also want to remind board members, it is happened on a couple of occasions where there's a need to change the calendar even after it's been adopted. We hope we don't have to do that, but please do know that's also something that can be explored as well. So thank you greatly, Mary, and to the folks who just.
I just asked, you give me an example of why that's happened in the past, or?
One was the Institute of Teacher Conference Days at the secondary level, right? We decided to move that around, working with teachers. That was made later after the adoption, right? Where in March, we came up with solar eclipse was another one that we did. Good point. Yeah. So yes, it was controversial that we were having class, and then the move was so strong that we moved the calendar around.
And the glasses.
I forgot about that, thank you for reminding me as well. All right, the next, we have, moving on to agenda item, which would be 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6 are all connected. They're all around the same topic. I know we have, Chris is here as well, but I'm gonna ask, or pass this off to Garrett. We had not talked about this in advance, but you've been, as part of the Finance and Facilities Committee, sort of leading this project. Anything that you'd like for us to say or consider as we entertain each of these four separate motions?
Well, I would just say we, in response to an excellent suggestion from Karen many months ago, we had the first 6 public conversations about that yesterday, right here in this room. I want to thank a lot of the administrative staff was here, Chris was here, Travis was here. And we had a good discussion, and we have 5 more planned. The next one being tomorrow evening, at Danby Fire Station. So the word is getting out to the public. Preparing for it on that. I don't think there's anything to add. Unless there are questions, I would just point out for the public's benefit, this has been discussed multiple times in Facilities and Finance Committee and in front of this body. There's nothing new to my knowledge to add to that. Chris, Tom. So I don't think there's really anything to add beyond what we've already discussed.
Sounds good. Thank you, Garrett. And for board members realizing that anytime we go through this process, there are a number of required resolutions that are necessary to be able before you go out or put it on up for a vote in May. So what you see here is the 4 sort of required. It's public, the seeker, the bond resolution, and etc. So, no, please.
So we're required to have them separated out?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't vote on one as a plan, one at a time. So to begin with, we'll start with agenda item 8.3, the seeker resolution. We'll entertain motions.
I move to approve the resolution for the capital improvement project of various school district buildings and facilities.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Questions, discussion, debate, dialogue? Hearing none. We'll call the question. All in favor? With one board member not in the room. Fantastic. That brings us to agenda item 8.4, which is the bond resolution, and we'll entertain motions.
I move to approve resolution authorizing the construction of improvements to and reconstruction of various school district buildings and facilities in and for the city school district of the city of Ithaca, Tompkins and Tioga counties, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $43,900,000, and authorizing the issuance of $43,900,000 bonds of said school district to pay the cost thereof.
Second.
Moved by Adam, seconded by Jacob. Questions, conversation, debates? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? All family. Agenda item 8.5, resolution of necessity.
Move to approve resolution authorizing the construction of improvements to and reconstruction of various school district buildings and facilities in and for the city school district of the city of Ithaca, Tompkins and Tioga counties, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $43,900,000, and authorizing the issuance of $43,900,000 bonds of said school district to pay the cost thereof.
Second.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Question, conversation? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Fantastic, unanimous. Thank you all. And then lastly, agenda item 8.6, a resolution calling for the district meeting and election of the Ithaca City School District and authorizing related measures.
Move to approve resolution calling the 2025 annual district meeting and election of the Ithaca City School District and authorizing related matters.
Second.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Question, conversation, debates? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you all very much. That is the end of our voting agenda items. We do have an agenda item of 9.2 and the possibility of going to exec. Are there any discussion items we need to explore this evening?
I have one quick one. I think at some point I was curious about restarting what has been described to me as like superintendent school visits, like within inclusion of board members. I know for myself as a new board member, I had done a couple of visits to schools just to sort of get a sense of them. I mean, then had a conversation where I was sort of told that that's outside of what board members should be doing without either a board vote or something scheduled by the superintendent. I was told it was sort of a past practice to do those sorts of visits, and so I wanted to resurface the idea, both because for myself, I would love to get a sense of each school building that I'm on a governance team regarding, but also for other board members who might have interest as well. I just wanted to say that and see what's the best way to move that forward.
A quick response are two things that, one that's in motion. The policy committee is in the process of bringing to the board a policy that is specifically related to school board member visits to schools. It's been a very interesting research process about what various school districts across the region do or across the state do. And we wanted to find ways in which to make sure that those policies were in alignment with some other district policies that we have, for example, public conduct on school property, visitors to schools, and noting that there is a significant difference between a school board member visiting a school in their official board capacity versus a school member visiting a school because they're a parent or a caregiver or attending an athletic event. So that policy will be coming up to folks. I believe we have it on for our April agenda to be able to finalize and bring to the board. Secondly, nothing stops us from having a conversation with Dr. Brown about creating some additional superintendent school visits, so long as we do not go over a quorum. That's something that we can work with Dr. Brown and send out a message to everyone and try to figure out what that looks like. That has been done in the past, stopped during COVID, but could easily be restarted.
So the next step, really helpful to know about the policy. So the next step for superintendent is I should send an email to everyone? Or am I missing?
My recommendation, and other boards, please feel free to weigh in, would be to have a conversation with Dr. Brown and make sure that all board members are aware of what this looks like so they can join. And again, make sure that we don't surpass it.
That's amenable.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. I have one more question. The curriculum committee did listening circles, and one thing that came out of the listening circle was a teacher mentioned homework policy and how just the same way that I mentioned like disparate policies or disparate practices on campus, also potentially disparate practices around homework. It was something that I know as the chair of the curriculum committee, I would be interested in sort of like discussing this more, so like doing research, like finding out about, because it looks like the homework policy hasn't been revised in the last decade or so. And I was curious, one, what people's thoughts are on that and what the best way to move forward might be when it's looking at homework policy. But I think it maybe falls at the interesting intersection between policy committee work and curriculum work.
Yeah, I think we can say that about a number of policies that they fall at the intersection of a number of our committees.
Yeah.
I would put it on. We can tentatively list it for the April policy committee and start exploring and seeing what is out there as well. Interesting comment from me about Canvas. If there is a way to have some sort of continuity, I think you all be rock stars. I have never seen it on any educational service, just given where we find ourselves. And the same thing may happen with homework policy as well. But definitely we can ask Emily to put it up for, it'll be a busy agenda, but we can put it on for the policy committee, invite all curriculum committee and all board members to come join us.
Thank you so much.
Last agenda item is to enter into executive session. We'll entertain motions.
I move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective negotiations with the Ithaca Employees Association, the employment history of a particular employee, and pending litigation in NYSIR case number ITH 2025 004 001. You guys know that one. And collective negotiations with the Ithaca Principals and Directors Association.
Second.
I have questions, but I will wait for those to take place. Any other discussion?
I didn't see the prince. Is it online but not here, the principles?
This is a slightly modified executive session entrance.
Fantastic. We'll call the question. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. This will in effect be the end of our meeting. There are no more voting items for the board. We'll come back into public session simply to close the meeting. Thank you all very much.
Always